Geopolitical tensions heighten uncertainty, which hurts investment and economic growth. Conflicts and wars also tend to reduce global supply capacity, with potentially inflationary effects. Oil prices are expected to decline this year. However, if the conflict in the Middle East escalates, oil prices could increase by 30% above our baseline forecast of $81 a barrel in 2024. This could stoke global inflation and reduce global growth by 0.2 percentage point. At 4.5%, Chinese growth this year would be the slowest since 1990, outside of the COVID-19 era. That will likely hurt the large number of advanced and developing economies that depend on trade with China. A deeper slowdown would intensify the pain. At the end of 2021, China was the destination for nearly 20% of all goods exports from developing economies, roughly 5 times the share at the start of this century. China has also become a much more important source of demand for commodities, particularly those that are central to the green energy transition. Our growth forecast for China is subject to downside risks, particularly relating to stresses in the property sector. If China were to grow 1 percentage point slower than expected in 2024, global growth could be lower by about 0.2 percentage points, with considerable harm to commodity exporting developing economies. It's remarkable that the sharpest increase in global interest rates in 40 years so far hasn't caused the type of havoc we saw in the 1980s. Policy interest rates will likely come down this year, but it might not be fast enough for some countries. After staying negative for an extended time, global real interest rates, nominal rates adjusted for inflation, are now positive and will likely remain elevated for the foreseeable future. Against the backdrop of weak growth, that will mean a continuing pressure cooker environment for developing economies with weak credit ratings. At the end of 2023, the number of developing economies in debt distress was at the highest level since 2000. The combination of weak growth, high real interest rates, and elevated debt levels could make servicing debt more difficult in vulnerable developing economies and push more of them into financial stress. A flare-up in financial stress in developing economies could reduce global growth by about 0.2 percentage point this year. It would reduce growth in developing economies by 0.6 percentage point. The number of policy measures restricting trade increased sharply last year. Trade restrictions and friendshoring and nearshoring might seem like logical policy responses to national security concerns. However, such policies could postpone the rebound that is much needed in global trade. In 2023, global trade growth all but ground to a halt. At 0.2%, it was the weakest performance outside of a global recession in 50 years. Global trade growth is expected to rebound this year, but it will be only half the average in the decade before the pandemic. Some businesses in advanced economies are retreating from global value chains and diverting investment instead to domestic or regional supply chains. These trends bode ill for developing economies, for whom trade has been a key force for greater productivity and improved living standards. Conflict in the Middle East has constricted one key choke point for global trade. Climate change has squeezed the other. Because of drought-depleted water levels in the Panama Canal, the number of ships transiting through the canal has declined significantly over the past year. That illustrates the degree to which climate change has become a near-term risk, not just a medium-term hazard. 2023 was the hottest year on record. A series of droughts, floods, and wildfires also made the impact of climate change more visible around the world last year. Climate change is increasing the frequency and cost of natural disasters, which tend to crimp economic growth, aggravate poverty, and lower agricultural yields. Damages and risks associated with climate change will cast a long shadow over the global economy this year and next. These risks, individually or collectively, have the potential to derail economic growth and stability. It is up to global leaders and policymakers to mitigate these risks and steer the world towards a sustainable and inclusive economic future. That's all for today. Stay tuned for more insightful discussions on the state of the world. Goodbye for now.